Good morning, everybody. And this is something new for me on a Friday morning. And just hoping that this is working and it's not on my page. This is a new piece of employment that I've been asked to do, or a piece of commentary that I've been asked to create. My name is Sheron Pearson, and I'm the host of the Conduit Show, which airs at e2onair.com, Turn It Up Radio in Jamaica, and also the EnglishConnectionMedia.com. I want to say thank you to the host, the creators of Jamaicans.com, which is an online magazine that I also write for and input for. Of course, I'm Sheron P, who reads the news from Jamaicans.com, the 7 Jamaican news items you may have missed. So Xavier Murphy has asked me to create a live video giving opinion on what's happening in New York City in terms of the pandemic. Of course, we're talking about COVID situation. This is something that's happening the world over. But I think it's good to get different perspectives. And so I'm here this morning on Good Friday, coincidentally. The funny thing about that is that because we're living in what seems to be an altered state, things are not normal anymore. And I will frankly be honest and say that I had forgotten that today, April 10th, is Good Friday. So first of all, let me say welcome and good day, good morning to the people who are watching. I would love for you to join, because what I would like to do is have a roll call. So when you actually join the video, not just watching, but when you join and comment, just let me know where you're watching from. And I'm going to be dialoguing with you. You can also get this live feed, I'm hoping, from Jamaicans.com website. Once again, my name is Sheron Pearson. I want to say good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are, what time of the day it is. I want you to know that you are not alone, because I know being shut in has its own issues. Nikki King, one love to you. Just let me know, Nikki, where you're watching from, please. And stay tuned. I'm going to be here for the next 10 or 15 minutes giving a New York perspective on the coronavirus. All right. Marva Purcell, good day to you from Las Vegas. Thank you so much. And I would ask you if you would kindly share the video with your colleagues and friends who may be interested. I'm here to give you the New York perspective, which is my perspective. Of course, I cannot give the total New York perspective. I'm one person. So naturally, I'm going to give you my perspective on how we in New York are coping and how we're impacted by this terrible plague. And I want to say hello to Sammy Francine Rule Andrew, logged in from the UK. And of course, you know, that's my country. See, I'm representing UK and Jamaica. Yes, we're going to stay safe. Now, I think there are so many things where to start. I did make some notes for myself. One of the things that really is of concern to me in this pandemic, and it's not just a New York issue, but it's something that I can speak on because it impacted me and I saw the effect of it. We know, especially if you're from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, there are certain norms that we have followed when it comes to people who have passed away. With this pandemic that's going on, with the hundreds of deaths that are occurring on a daily basis, the norm has changed. There is now a new normal. And the thing that I want to talk about and raise with the listeners, and I want to say thank you to everyone's logging in. I will acknowledge you after, but I don't want to interrupt the flow because it is kind of annoying for those people who want to get to the meat of what it is I have to say. I'm here. My name is Sheron Pearson. Thank you so much for logging in. Please share the video. Today we're giving you a New York perspective on the coronavirus. And one of the things that I really want to address this Good Friday is the new normal when it comes to people who are dying. As the coronavirus spreads and we see the impact with the increase in deaths, It impacts our community because we are used to celebrating death in a certain way or mourning death in a certain way. Of course, when a member of our community, whether it's family or friend, dies, there's a procedure that's followed. Of course, I'm talking about the nine night, the whole ritual of death and the mourning of death. So in the Caribbean community, and it may be true in other communities, but let me speak about what I know. In the Caribbean community, from the moment the person dies, the community gathers them in, and the community is in the home to support the bereaved family members. This has happened since I was a child growing up. I've attended many nine-night ceremonies, the most memorable of which was the one for my grandmother, and I actually write about that in my blog. I was then in England and my grandmother passed in Jamaica, and of course all the family members will come from wherever they are in the world to be at the epicenter of things that are happening, celebrating the nine-night. But now, with coronavirus, that's all changed. Because, of course, we are now in quarantine. We are now under orders to stay in place. We have to participate in what's called social distancing. That means we have to avoid crowds. When we do go out, we're now being told that we should be wearing face coverings. In other words, we should be wearing masks, we should protect ourselves by wearing gloves, and we should not be in close contact with other people because we don't know who has the virus. We know that there are carriers of the virus and there are those who are symptomatic. They show signs of the virus. But to be on the safe side, you really want to keep yourself distant. I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching this video. My name is Sheron Pearson, and I'm doing this video for Jamaicans.com to give a New York perspective of the coronavirus and how it's impacting New York. I'm in the Bronx, so I'm giving you a local version of New York. And one of the things that really has impacted not just New York, but the whole of the US, especially where Caribbean people are congregating, and that is that we now have a new normal when it comes to celebrating death or celebrating the life of a loved one or a friend who's passed away. So because of these restrictions that we're under, we're not able to go to the family that's suffering the bereavement and offer comfort as we would normally do. So the person dies, and most times victims of corona are dying alone. Let me just let that sink in. You may have a loved one, your mother, your aunt, your cousin, your friend. Once they go to the hospital, if they are going to the hospital, and they are put on a ventilating machine, the chances of them surviving, we don't know what the chances are, but we're hearing of the deaths. We do know, thank goodness, thank God, that people who do get the virus, they do recover. Not everybody who gets the virus has a death sentence. We're hearing about the ones who don't make it. And we do know that because the hospitals are on lockdown and the patients have to be as isolated as possible, family members are being excluded from being with their loved ones. So when you send your loved one off in an ambulance or you take them to the hospital and they should expire, the last time you see them is when you send them off to the hospital or they're taken into the ICU unit. Think about how devastating that is, because loss has to go through a process. Bereavement has to go through a process. And when we're denied that process, we're left hanging. This is a new normal. And I know I'm not the only one that's finding it difficult to cope. So our loved ones are dying alone. They don't have a familiar face, or if they're conscious, someone to hold their hands. Because saying goodbye is not just for the person who's making their transition. It's also for the people who are left behind. To be able to come to terms with the fact that my loved one is passing. I was there when my mother, father, sister, brother took their last breath. I held their hand. It's comforting for the person who's left behind as well as for the person making their transition. But with this new normal, that's coronavirus, we are being denied our rituals and traditions. So the 9-night is no longer. There are no more gatherings. There is no more fish and bread. There is no more curry goat and rice. There is no more affirmation of life in the midst of death, because we're all separated because of new pandemic rules. So we're robbed of the 9-night. Let's move on now to burials. The rules are, in churches and in funeral homes, no more than 10 people can gather to celebrate the passing of a loved one or a friend. This past Saturday, I actually went to a loved one's final ritual in a funeral home. I got there late. The doors were closed because the 10 people were inside. I waited outside because it was important for me to let the family know that I was there to support them, even though I wasn't there for the service and I wasn't there to view the body for the last time. It was important for me to show my support to the family. But can you imagine how many people are being robbed of that final farewell? The family came out and it was a very subdued affair. Normally you would be hugging and giving condolences and giving support by touch, by comforting. What do we do when someone's crying? What's the instant reaction? To reach out, rub that person's back, pat them on the back, show them by your connection, your physical connection, that you're there to give support. Coronavirus is robbing us of that ability. So it's time to go now to the burial. 10 people at the graveside. And my family member told me it was like a conveyor belt. If you have loved ones who are dying and you choose to have a burial or cremation, be prepared. It's a new normal. It's not what we're used to, but it's something, until this pandemic is over, it's something that we're going to have to get used to. And this is a New York perspective, but I'm sure this is something that is happening all over the world. Whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Jamaica, the rules still apply. Limited numbers that are able to mourn at the gravesite or at the funeral home. No more gatherings of 9 nights and public support. This is the new normal. We're also hearing that now in New York City, they are burying people at Hart Island. Now, Hart Island has traditionally been a place in New York City where the indigenous, the poor, bodies that are unclaimed are buried. The last time Hart Island was used was in the AIDS epidemic, in the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s and 90s, where people were just, much like this, were dying in numbers, in huge numbers. And so to dispose of the bodies, they would put them in unmarked coffins, in unmarked graves, in a pit. This is the new normal. It's the new normal for us in New York City. And it's not something that people are talking about, but this was something that I wanted to air because I'm used to celebrating life and death in a certain way. And it's ironic that this is the conversation that I'm having today, this Good Friday. If you celebrate Good Friday, happy Easter to all of you. Though today is a somber day, again, tradition. And we Caribbean people, and I'm sure other people who may not be Caribbean, have traditions. This is how lifestyles are passed from generation to generation. As a child, you saw your parents and grandparents doing things a certain way. And as you grow up, you start doing them the same way, and you teach your children and grandchildren the same traditions. This is how we hold on to culture. The break in culture comes when we forget our traditions. And how do we forget our traditions? When the older generation makes their transition without passing on cultural things. So as we have increasing deaths, not just of the elderly, but now we see young, middle-aged, that this virus is no discriminator, much like death. Death doesn't discriminate. It's not, when you go to the cemetery, it's not just headstones with people who are 80 and 90 that you see. You see all types of ages, people who appointed once to die, and they die. How do we cope with all of this loss and all of this death around us? For me, I limit the news that I watch, because being shut in and being bombarded with negative news, it's not a good thing for your mental health. So you have to find the things that give you comfort, the things that give you joy, the things that give you delight, whether it's cooking, but don't go overboard on the cooking, as I have a friend who's baking every day. I want to send a shout out to Susanna Knox in the Bronx. I can't wait to taste all of those breads and cakes that you've been cooking. I hope you open a bakery shop when all of this is over. And what we have to remember is that this will be over. This too will pass. Maybe not by the 1st of May, as our leaders are saying that they want us to get back to work. We have to be sensible. And if we're not getting sensible leadership, we have to be our own leaders. So if you're hearing something and it doesn't sit well with you, exercise your grey matter and think about, does that sound right? That doesn't quite sound right to me. So you have to do what feels comfortable for you, and you have to exercise wisdom. We may not have the elders around us, but for those that do, reach out to your elders. Let them know that you may not be able to see them, but you can call them, you can communicate with them, and that you're thinking about them, and that we are praying one for another. At this Easter time, let's bring the community, strengthen the community, so that we can be there to support each other. Because not being able to go out, not being able to mingle, not being able to attend funeral services as we would, not being able to support families in their bereavement, it will take a toll on us mentally, physically, and we can't dwell on these things. So if you're feeling not your usual self, if you're feeling overwhelmed, remember, we are all in the same community, and we can all support and lift each other up. Because as we lift others up, we're lifting ourselves up. Now, I'm not sure how long I've been speaking to you. I want to say thank you so much for being so patient with me while I expressed what was on my mind, giving you a New York perspective. If you liked what you heard, then share the video with friends. You can go back to the website, Jamaicans.com, and hopefully this live video will be saved there, and you can share it with your friends. And if there's anything that you took issue with, or anything that you wanted to have a further deeper discussion with me about, then I'm also on Facebook, and you can find me as Sheron Bonafire Hamilton Pearson. I also present an internet radio program called The Conduit Show, which airs on Sundays from 6 to 9 p.m. at e2onair.com. I'm also the lady that reads the news for Jamaicans.com. So you may have heard the voice. Now you actually can put a face to that voice. And I'm just asking all of you not to give up, not to have despair, as we are now in the most solemn day of Easter. And I thought seriously about giving you this update today of all days, Good Friday, which as a tradition for me growing up with my grandmother, this was the day when the only thing we did was go to church. She would have cooked a meal beforehand, so there was no cooking that was going on. And today was the day that Jamaicans do what? Eat fish and bread, right? No meat today, because this was the day that we celebrate and remember the sacrifice that Christ made. We're not going to have an argument about Christianity and religion and belief. I firmly believe that you are entitled to your belief and I'm entitled to mine. And we don't need to denigrate each other for believing one thing or another. As we see what's happening right now worldwide, it's not just something affecting Africa, it's affecting the whole wide world. And what I take away from this is that we need more love, not just for each other, but for the earth. The earth is healing, and as the earth heals itself, the people will heal too. So we have to just ride out the storm, not be discouraged. Reach out to the people that can lift you up if you are feeling as though you're overwhelmed. Don't sit there by yourself because, as Dennis Brown says, no man, no woman, no child is an island. We all need each other. Let's reach out and make the community strong. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Sheron Pearson with your New York perspective of what's going on in the time of Corona. God bless you all. And for those who celebrate, have a good Easter, Shabbat, Passover, whatever it is you celebrate. One love.